Champions League rules explained for Liverpool amid Mark Guehi Conference League decision. Latest Liverpool transfer news and gossip with an update on Crystal Palace defender Mark Guehi. Mark Guehi of Crystal Palace. Liverpool are continuing to be linked with a move for Crystal Palace defender Mark Guehi as they look to strengthen their defensive options. Guehi has emerged as a target for the Reds this summer as they aim to bring in a new center-back before the September 1st deadline. Giovanni Lini has already been signed by Liverpool this summer from Parma after a £26 million deal was agreed with the Serie A outfit. Guehi is also a target for the Reds, with the club in talks with Palace over a deal to bring the England international to Anfield. Guehi is out of contract at Palace at the end of the season, and it remains to be seen if Liverpool will be able to agree a deal for this summer. Guehi leaving on a free transfer next year remains a possibility, with the chances of the defenders signing a new contract rather slim. If Liverpool were to sign Guehi, though, there have been questions raised about if the defender would be able to feature in the Champions League. This is due to Palace competing in the Conference League playoff stage, which is another competition from Eufa. Palace will take on Fredrikstad in their Conference League playoff, and the good news for Liverpool is that even if Guehi does feature, he would still be able to play for the Reds in the Champions League this season. UEFA's rules state, a player who has been fielded in the first, second, or third qualifying round, or in the playoffs of the UEFA Champions League, UEFA Europa League, or UEFA Conference League, is entitled to play in the Champions League, Europa League, or Conference League for another club as from the league phase. Liverpool will discover who they will face in the league phase of the Champions League when the draw is made on August 28th. The Reds will play 8 league phase matches, including 4 at Anfield and 4 away from home between September and January. Crucial detail missing from Alexander Isak's transfer statement is biggest hurdle for Liverpool, Liverpool's #1 target. Alexander Isak has publicly aired his grievances with Newcastle United, but one key piece of information was missing from his scathing social media statement. Alexander Isak wants to leave Newcastle United. Alexander Isak left out an important detail from his explosive statement on his situation at Newcastle United. The striker took to Instagram on Tuesday evening to clear the air as to what is happening with his current club. In his scathing assessment, Isak claimed that the Magpies had broken promises which were made to him, and that moving on from Tyneside is the best thing for all parties. However, the 25-year-old missed out one bit of detail as to why Liverpool may have been unsuccessful in their endeavors to sign him as of yet. Speaking on his Rio Presents YouTube channel, former Manchester United defender Rio Ferdinand spoke about Liverpool's opening offer of around £110 million being rejected earlier this month. He then asked, "The question is he worth more than that? Do Newcastle value him more than that? And if they value him more than that, how much more, and is it an outrageous ask?" Because that's where then I feel a player gets to go, hold on, you're pricing me out of the market unrealistically, and so I have a problem. And that's the detail that we need to get from Isak and his camp, I think. When you look at the other transfers of the summer, you have to ask, is Newcastle's price, for argument's sake, £140 million, £150 million? Is that realistic? Is that £30 million to £40 million more expensive than a Florian Wirtz? If we're to say, yes, he is, then I don't think Liverpool will go and meet their asking price. And Isak has to accept that. But I think what Isak and his camp need to do is they need to know what the asking price was, and were Liverpool comfortable meeting that asking price? Rio Ferdinand has spoken about Alexander Isak's transfer saga. Ferdinand then highlighted where he thinks it has all turned sour between Isak and his club, touching on the reported gentleman's agreement between Isak and Amanda Staveley before she left the club. He added, "That's the problem. I think there's been a gentleman's agreement. A promise made at this price that will unlock you ready to go to that club is asking for you. That price has been met, but the person that has given the promise has left the football club, I think. And the new regime and new people in them seats are saying, the promise wasn't with us, it was with that individual, not the club. There's no paperwork to say that it's the club backing that. That person promised, they're no longer here. Promise is void." Isak is saying, whoa, I'm not happy about that. Now I think where the club maybe should have done better is this conversation should have been had as soon as that person left. Alexander Isak is pushing for a move away from Newcastle. Now, the nuances I'm talking about is, did the person who made the promise and left the football club tell the people coming in? I've got a promise, by the way, with one of our best players, if not the best player. Just you want to take that up and you want to start talking about that now. Maybe in January, whenever it was, say it, so you don't have this problem in the transfer window in the summer where there's little time. Pressure's on and you're doing it in the public now, and they're airing their dirty laundry. I think that's been a big mistake, and I think that you've got to look at these player power moments and these verbal agreements. The player refusing to play, refusing to train. This is a last resort situation, or Liverpool manager Arne Slot would still love to sign Alexander Isak before the window shuts. As it stands, Liverpool are yet to return with a second bid after seeing their opening offer rejected, and with less than 2 weeks until transfer deadline day, it remains to be seen as to whether they will or not. Isak has reportedly claimed that he will never play for the club again, regardless of whether he sees a move to Merseyside ahead of September 1st, and despite having 3 years left on his current contract. It appears as though Liverpool have pumped the brakes on their approach for Isak for the time being, instead concentrating on bolstering their defensive options for the new season. The club recently acquired the services of centre-half Giovanni Leone in a £26 million deal with Parma, and are still looking at finally landing longtime target Marc Guehi from Crystal Palace. Liverpool handed unexpected boost for Marc Guehi as Crystal Palace face transfer decision. Liverpool are in talks with Crystal Palace over a deal for Marc Guehi. Liverpool's hopes of landing Marc Guehi could be boosted by Arsenal defender Jakub Kiwior potentially joining Crystal Palace. The Reds opened negotiations with the Eagles over a deal for the England international, who has 12 months remaining on his current contract, earlier this month. But despite a keen interest in the central defender, talks between Liverpool and Crystal Palace have yet to break through. After the Community Shield tie between the two sides earlier this month, Palace chairman Steve Parish insisted Guehi's future needed sorting out one way or another before the transfer window closes on September 1st. However, on Wednesday night, it seemed as though Liverpool could be handed an inadvertent boost in their pursuit of Guehi, with Arsenal reportedly considering offering defender Kiwior to Palace as part of a deal to sign Eberechi Eze. The Gunners, though, are reportedly hopeful of snaring the England international away from their North London rivals, and the Independent claims they could use Kiwior to sweeten the deal for Palace. If Palace were to receive the Poland international as part of a deal, it begs the question as to whether they would lower their asking price for Guehi. Newcastle and Tottenham have previously had bids rejected for the 25-year-old, while Barcelona and Juventus were credited with an interest in the defender earlier this week. Newcastle Respond after Isak broke silence with bombshell statement. Newcastle United now have no intention of allowing Alexander Isak to leave in light of a bombshell statement in which he accused the club of broken promises. The club have pursued alternatives all summer, and had they signed one of their top targets, they would have explored Isak's sale to Liverpool, recognizing his desire to move on. However, the message from the top tonight is that Isak will be told he is staying at the club. The hierarchy believe that they have now been left with no choice but to stand firm after the striker released his inflammatory statement. As recently as this weekend, they were still trying to bring in two strikers that would have allowed them to consider a renewed approach from Liverpool, having previously missed out on the likes of João Pedro, Liam Delap, Hugo Ekitike, or Benjamin Sesko. But signing one, let alone two, has proven difficult, and the growing likelihood was that Isak would have to stay on Tyneside, despite his insistence on never playing for the club again. The 25-year-old broke his silence on his strike on Tuesday night, saying trust has been lost and that a change was best for all parties. Alexander Isak has hit out at Newcastle in a bombshell statement on social media. Daily Mail Sport revealed last month that Isak and his camp were furious last summer when new sporting director Paul Mitchell told them he would not be getting a new contract. Previous co-owner Amanda Staveley had discussed improved terms with them in the spring, believing he was worth and due a pay rise. That led to a feeling of resentment, and Isak's mind was made up that he wanted to move on, informing the club at the end of last season of his intention to leave. However, Newcastle have tried and so far failed to find a replacement. Sources close to the situation believe this has triggered the release of a statement in which Isak says there is no way back. "I've kept quiet for a long time while others have spoken," he wrote on his Instagram account. That silence has allowed people to push their own version of events, even though they know it doesn't reflect what was really said and agreed behind closed doors. The reality is that promises were made, and the club has known my position for a long time. To now act as if these issues are only emerging is misleading. When promises are broken and trust is lost, the relationship can't continue. That's where things are for me right now, and why change is in the best interest of everyone, not just myself. Liverpool's move for Marc Guehi hangs in the balance as desperate claim made. Liverpool have long been linked with a move for Marc Guehi, but at the moment, it feels like things have come to a halt. Over the last month or so, several players have been linked with a potential Anfield switch, and while Guehi's name seems to be popping up regularly, Liverpool have decided against making any further moves. Indeed, Giovanni Leoni has just been brought in to provide some further backup, but since he's only 18 years old, it's unknown whether he'd be able to handle the Premier League just yet. However, after the performance that Ibrahima Konate put in during Liverpool's 4-2 win against Bournemouth, it's clear that he needs some regular competition to keep him at the top of his game. Liverpool are not desperate to bring Marc Guehi in this summer. Now that Liverpool have 4 center-backs among their ranks, they have plenty of cover ahead of the 2025-26 season. If the Reds didn't manage to prize Leoni away from the Serie A this summer, they'd be in a whole lot of trouble and would have likely been held to ransom by Crystal Palace. Now that they're in a stronger negotiating position, and Guehi only has a year left on his current deal, Arne Slot can wait until a free transfer can be agreed upon, better yet, a discounted rate for his transfer this summer. And while speaking live on TalkSport, journalist Alex Crook shared an update on the future of the Englishman. "Liverpool are not desperate to do this deal for Marc Guehi. I think they'll only do it if the price is right," Crook said. "So at the moment, I would probably edge towards Guehi staying. Can Liverpool manage without signing Marc Guehi this season? As mentioned on paper, now that Liverpool have 4 senior center-backs among their ranks, you'd think that they'd have plenty of cover. However, when the injury history of Joe Gomez is taken into account, they only really have 3, as the former Charlton man cannot be relied upon each week. Indeed, when he's fit, he's arguably one of the best center-backs in the Premier League. But since being fully fit seems to be a rare occurrence for Gomez these days, it's hard to rely on him to be a reliable backup. In addition to his injury history, the fact that he's also likely to be used at cover for both fullback positions, this term means that he may not be able to be used at center back if and when needed. Of course, the Reds have other options among their ranks, but since Slot knows that Gomez can hold his own, he'd likely be the first to be called upon. These are all just ifs, buts, and maybes at the moment, but with the way that things have panned out thus far, it feels like Liverpool should be more interested in acquiring Guehi's services this summer, rather than waiting until the end of the year. That is, especially since the Englishman has been dubbed exceptional by Gareth Southgate due to the performances he put in during Euro 2024. Liverpool target Alexander Isak makes decision as Newcastle starts transfer talks. Newcastle striker Alexander Isak has decided against attending the Professional Footballers Association's PFA award ceremony on Tuesday. Despite being nominated, Alexander Isak made a decision. Newcastle's forward, Alexander Isak, has decided to give the Professional Footballers Association's PFA awards gala a miss, despite being in contention for a top honor. The Swedish international, who has been nominated for the Players' Player of the Year award, is rumored to be staying away amid speculation about his future. Isak has allegedly informed Newcastle that he has played his last Premier League game for the club, even though the Magpies have rejected an offer from Liverpool. A fresh bid from Liverpool could be on the cards before the transfer deadline, but Eddie Howe's club is keen to secure 2 more forwards before sanctioning any departure. On Tuesday, it emerged that Newcastle has opened talks with Wolves over a deal for Jurgen Strand Larsen, who could potentially replace Isak in the starting 11. Isak is one of 6 contenders for the Players' Player of the Year award, alongside Bruno Fernandes, Alexis Mac Allister, Cole Palmer, Declan Rice, and Mohamed Salah. However, as per BBC Sport, Isak had not confirmed his presence at the awards ceremony barely 24 hours prior to its scheduled start time on Tuesday. Salah is widely expected to win the award after firing Liverpool to the Premier League title. Last year, the coveted award was won by Phil Foden at the ceremony held in Manchester. The England international, who had just helped Manchester City clinch the league title with a career-best 19 goals, accepted his award in person. Isak is up for the top award. The BBC's report suggests that previous winners and nominees have often left it late to confirm their attendance. However, the broadcaster also quotes unnamed sources, suggesting that Isak does not plan to attend. Isak's performances last term left him highly sought after during the early stages of the summer transfer window. The striker concluded the season with 23 league goals and 27 across all competitions, both personal records helping Newcastle secure Champions League qualification. Liverpool's opening offer was turned down by Newcastle. The forward remains intent on departing, however, and was omitted from manager Howe's matchday squad for the Premier League curtain raiser against Aston Villa. I hope it's resolved quickly because it's news around us all the time, Howe told TNT Sports following the scoreless stalemate at Villa Park. Players have managed to shut that out and perform. We have to continue to do that. We have to cope without the narrative against us. Newcastle's next game happens to be against Liverpool at St. James's Park. The Reds didn't face significant difficulties finding the net in their opener, with new signing Guehi'S scoring in a 4-2 triumph over Bournemouth. Guehi'S was among the forwards on Newcastle's radar before his switch to Anfield, but the club has alternative targets as it prepares for Isak's potential departure. Brentford's Eufa and Paris Saint-Germain's Gonçalo Ramos are both under consideration, with either capable of arriving on Tyneside before the transfer window closes on September 1st.